Boom, we're live. So, welcome back to another LinkedIn Live that we're doing. I have the great pleasure today to welcome Bob Burg onto the show. Bob, it's brilliant to have you with us today. How's your day going today, sir?
It's going great, Tom. Terrific to be with you. Thank you.
Really looking forward to this conversation. I wanted to do it because I remember speaking with your team and speaking with yourself, saying how important it is for communication and making sure that people have good principles in place, especially around a time when there's a lot of new tech emerging. And I find your book series that you co-authored with John a great way of looking at how people can get set on laws of success, which you touch on your book, which I want to go into, and how people can think about their creative way of writing sometimes. And I see it quite a lot, Bob, with writing for technology. It can be quite hard and it can be quite tricky to get that message across and to get that value across. But before we kind of delve into all these topics and questions I want to ask from your expertise, Bob, I'd love to know what set you up to write this book, this series of books with your co-author, and what experiences led you to think this is what I need to share with the world, which to now has gone on to sell over 1 million copies, which is insane. Where did it all start, Bob?
Yeah, many years ago, I had a book out called Endless Referrals. Subtitle was Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales. And it was really a how-to book that was designed for entrepreneurs and salespeople who they knew they had a great product or service. They knew it brought tremendous value to others, but they didn't necessarily feel comfortable going out into their communities and creating the types of relationships with people that would cause others to want to do business with them directly, as well as refer them to others. So, Endless Referrals was a system for that. I personally define a system as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how to principles. The key being predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired results of B, then you know that all you need to do is A and continue to do A and continue to do A, and you'll get the desired results of B. So it was a system.
Yeah.
And, and I've been very fortunate. It's sold very well throughout the years. And, however, I'd always enjoyed reading business parables since I began in sales. We're starting out with Og Mandino's Greatest Salesman in the World,
Yeah.
James Classen's Richest Man in Babylon, and you had
Great
the
book.
1 Minute series by Doctors Blanchard and Johnson. And throughout the years, there's always been Andrea Waltz, Richard Fenton, their book, so I think one reason why is because parables, which are stories, stories connect, right? They
Yeah.
connect on a much deeper, on a heart to heart level. And I thought, what wouldn't it be great if we could take the basic premise of Endless Referrals, which is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust, and
Yeah.
put that into a parable form.
I love
So
it.
teaming up, I asked John David Mann, who at the time was the editor-in-chief of a magazine I was writing for. He was also a very successful entrepreneur in his own right, and just a brilliant, brilliant writer and storyteller. So I asked John if he would go in on this with me, and he was the lead writer and storyteller. I mean, he's fantastic. And
Yeah.
so we thought it was a story that whose message was right for the time, that we wanted to share with people that, yeah, you could run your business in a way that was very congruent with your values. And I think most people who are entrepreneurs, who are salespeople, they have a need, a desire to make a positive difference in people's lives. And as entrepreneurs and salespeople, we tend to do that through our products and services. That doesn't mean we can't be involved in other areas, charities, what have you, but
Yeah.
we tend to do it really through our product and service. And
Yeah.
I think it's human nature to want to be part of something bigger than yourself, to want to know that when your time is up, you've made a difference in people's lives, and to earn a really good living while you're doing it. So we felt the go-giver message, which is that shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more pleasant way, fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well.
Yeah. add more value, get more value. Like I always see it that way. And the
Add,
companies that add more value, especially in this world of tech and innovation and any other industry that tech falls into, I always think a business isn't around unless it gives value, right? And I think
well, especially to the degree that we operate in a free market system.
yeah,
And when I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else.
yeah,
When that's the case, the only way you can receive a whole lot of money in income
yeah,
is by providing a whole lot of value to a whole lot of people. When I
yeah,
speak at sales conferences, I'll often begin by saying, you know, nobody's going to buy from you
yeah.
because you have a quota to meet.
That's a
Right?
good point. I
They're
like
not
that.
gonna right, they're not gonna buy from you because you need the money, and they're
Yeah,
not even gonna buy from you just because you're a really nice person. They're gonna
yeah,
buy from you, they're gonna do business with you because they believe that they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so, and that's the only reason why anyone should buy from you or from me or from anyone else. But this is great news for that
yeah,
entrepreneur, that salesperson who really has a desire to
yeah.
bring value to another person.
Yeah, I love that. I work off the principle, and I want to talk about the principles you've got in the book, or the 5 laws of success. And I see them as principles as well, because they're principles for success as well as laws for success. But I always work off emotion being the ultimate resource for our business, and thinking if I can connect with a business on a emotional level, if I can make that marketing director display great results to their director or their boss or the CEO or to the wider team, that's going to fill them with joy. And I always look at it that way. So it's very interesting to say, and it's still a value thing, but it's also how can I make that person feel
Sure.
better about their role, which I think is
Absolutely. That's value. That's value in and of itself. We always have to look at it through the other person's eyes.
yeah,
Because when you think about selling, what is it? It's discovering what the other person needs, wants, or desires and
yeah,
helping them to get it. So, one thing about value, even the term, because it's a term we hear a lot, so it
yeah,
can have different definitions to different people.
yeah,
Value is really the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, solution, what have you, that brings so much worth to another human being that they will willingly exchange their money for it and be glad that they did, while
yeah,
you make a very healthy profit. But what we've got to remember is that value is always in the eyes of the beholder. It's not what we think is valuable about what we do. Okay. It's not what we think they should think is
yeah.
valuable about what we do. It's what they value.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, and that's corresponds a lot with the people we interview, the companies we work with, and companies that I know work with each other in separate fields. It's especially with technology, and not to bring it too much back to this point, but our audience is tech focused, and they
Mhm.
all think if you don't have a product or service that you can display the value to, or you can understand it, they can get so caught up in building the product and building the service that they don't actually look for that feedback or look how does it look, as you said, Bob, through that other lens, through that other person's eyes. So I think that's a real important point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the technology has to be great. It's got to work. It's got to do what it's supposed to do. But
Yeah,
you know what? It's never about the technology.
yeah,
It's
I can
never
relate.
about that. It's
Yeah,
about the results that another person has. And that's the key to remember. John David Mann, when we wrote Go Givers Sell More, the second book in the series, he introduced me to a term called a MacGuffin.
yeah,
And a MacGuffin is a movie term that was coined by the late great British film director Alfred Hitchcock.
yeah,
And a MacGuffin can be defined as the object around which the story revolves. But here's the thing: when you get to the end of that story, what you realize is that thing the movie was about really wasn't what it was about,
yeah,
right? There's always a deeper message.
yeah,
So, you take a message like the movie. Remember the old movie Rocky, the boxing
yeah,
story, right?
yeah,
Well, what was the MacGuffin? His heavyweight championship fight with Apollo Creed. That
yeah,
was the MacGuffin. Everything in the movie kind of revolved around that, but that wasn't what it was about. It
Yeah.
was about a man who at the beginning of the story felt like a washed up loser who had nothing really to offer anyone. And by
Yeah.
the time the story ended, you had a guy who was confident and he was loved and he loved someone and he knew he brought value to the world and he felt good about himself, right? That's
Yeah.
what it was really about. Well, it's the same with any product or service, and it doesn't matter what it is,
Yeah.
including the technology. Again, that it's got to work, it's got to be good, it's got to do what it's supposed to do, right? But it's just not what it's about in the other person's mind, and that's what counts.
I love that. I love that. That's a great point. So before I ask you about the laws of success, the 5 laws of success, and would love a rundown for people. And there's already one person saying the Go Giver is a great read and definitely worth
Oh,
getting.
thank
Um,
you.
I'd like to know from you, Bob, how did the process of writing the first in the series, so the first series you put together with John, how did it change? Did it change your way of writing for other areas of your career, other areas? Were there a lot of things what did you learn from it? Did your writing style change? Did you understand things from that kind of feedback loop? Walk us through that.
Well, so all of my books that I've written before the Go Giver series and since the Go Giver series have been how-to books. I'm a how-to writer, really.
Yeah.
Uh, John could write how-to, but he's also a wonderful storyteller. So
Yeah.
he was really the lead writer. So we worked on this and getting the story idea together. We would have an idea, we had a character outline. We knew what we wanted the people to do, be who they were based on, or who, if they weren't, what they're right. But then John would write the chapter, and then we would come back and we'd review it. We'd go through it line by line, word by word, letter by letter. But John's just a joy to work with. He did the heavy lifting when it came to
Yeah.
the writing. So it wasn't really. If I grew as an author, it was because I got to watch a master at work, right, and
Awesome.
and work with them.
Yeah, that's a great credit as well. I love that. I love that how you've looked at working together and you refined it together and built it together. So that's really cool. And maybe then walk us through. So you're saying the books before that you've written and what you've done with John and written it together and co-authored it and him being the lead writer. What were those 5 laws of success and how did you both, or how did John, or how from your angle, Bob, come up with those 5 laws of success to what a lot of people are saying have really helped them? I mean, there's God knows how many quotes from people saying how amazing it has helped them, how it's shaped them, how it's changed their business. How did that all come about? How did you both come up with it?
Well, John and I both being entrepreneurs, having failures, having successes, um, getting to be around a lot of very, very successful entrepreneurs. John is a writer and as an entrepreneur, and myself, once I started speaking,
Yeah,
and we both read constantly in terms of, and we found this out that we really, we'd read a lot of the same books and studied a lot of the same people. And so there's certain principles of success
yeah,
that are just they're timeless. That's why they're principles, right? They're timeless. They always have been, they are now, they always will be. And there are certain things that, as we discuss this, that
yeah,
we saw that successful people throughout history have always done. Okay.
yeah,
Every single time they had to do these 5 things. Now, they didn't always know they were doing them. That's not the point. Many people did things intuitively, right? They
yeah,
didn't even know they were doing it, but
yeah,
they did it. Some people learned. Now, we didn't make up any of these laws. We named them, we gave them names and we put them in story form, but none of this is new. I remember
yeah,
Jim Rohn, the great business philosopher and speaker and entrepreneur, used to say, beware of the person who comes offering you new fundamentals,
yeah,
right? And so none of this is new.
yeah,
But we both knew that the first law had to be the law of value because that's the foundational principle. Okay. The
yeah,
second one, the law of compensation, which is not only the value you provide, but it's how many lives you impact with
yeah,
that value, right?
yeah. Love
So
that.
and that's why we say, money is an echo of value. It's the thunder of value's lightning. But you can't just bring exceptional value to one person and expect to make a whole lot of income. You've got to be able to impact, touch the lives of many, um, as the second mentor in the story had Nicole Martin, as she explained to Joe, the protege.
Yeah,
Now, then the third law, the law of influence. Well, because as far as John and I were concerned, that's really when you think about what it's all about in terms of the how you reach people. Because
Yeah.
what is influence? Well, on a very basic level, it can be defined as the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action. But that's its definition. It's not really its essence, though, Tom.
Yeah.
The essence of influence is pull.
Yeah.
Pull as opposed to push, right? As in, how far can you push a rope?
Yeah.
The answer's not very far, at least not very fast or very effectively, which is why great influencers don't push. They
Yeah.
don't push their ideas on others. They don't push their will on others. They don't push themselves on others, right? You never
Yeah.
hear people say, wow, that's Steve or that Joanne. She is so influential. She has a lot of push with
Yeah.
people. No, they'd say that Joanne is very influential. She has a lot of pull with
Yeah.
people. And so influence is pull. It's an attraction. At one point in the story, remember Pindar told Joe, givers attract, right?
Yeah.
And so what does he really mean? Well, the great influencer, the genuine influencer always understands that while they need to be internally motivated, they need to be externally focused.
Yeah. I like
Because
that.
remember, as Dale Carnegie wrote in How to Win Friends and Influence People,
Yeah.
ultimately people do things for their reasons, not our reasons.
Yeah.
So the great influencer always asks themselves, well, how does what I'm asking this person to do, how does it align with their values, with
Yeah.
their needs, their wants, their desires? How does what I want this other person to do, how does it align with with the problems that they want to solve, right? How
Yeah.
can I bring them closer to happiness, as you were talking about earlier? And when
Yeah.
we ask ourselves these questions thoughtfully, intelligently, uh, genuinely, authentically, not as a way to manipulate another human being into doing our will, but as a way of building everyone in the process,
Yeah.
now we've come a lot closer to earning that person's commitment
I
as
love.
opposed to trying to depend on some type of compliance. So that's influence, it's pull, it's earning commitment. And I love what one of my great friends, Dondi Scumaci, a wonderful author and teacher on leadership and influence, she says, compliance will never take you
Yeah.
where commitment can go. So
I
that's
love.
why John and I came up with that for the third influence. Now, we always say the next two kind of wrote themselves.
Yeah.
The law of authenticity. Well, why? Because if and this is what Deborah, the mentor in this part of the story, told her audience, that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they
Yeah.
are all indeed very important, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true authentic core.
Yeah.
But when you do, when you show up as yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. People feel comfortable with you. People feel safe with
Mm.
you. And why wouldn't they? They know who they're getting. So that was very important. And then the fifth one kind of brings it all home. And, John and I said, well, so what is it where does it still, what's the result, right? When we say, money's an echo of value. Well, that's receptivity. You've also got to be able to receive. So the law number 5, the law of receptivity is, the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. And what we mean by this, and what Pindar told Joe
Yeah.
is, you breathe out, you also have to breathe in.
Yeah.
It's not one or the
Okay.
other if you wanna live and survive and thrive, right?
Yeah.
So, we breathe out carbon dioxide, we breathe in oxygen. We breathe out, which is giving. We breathe in, which is receiving. Giving and receiving are not opposite concepts, even though so much of the world gives us that messaging, right?
Yeah.
And we see this, whether it's upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, social media. There's so many anti-prosperity messages out there. It can really mess with a person's head,
Yeah.
especially on the unconscious aspect. And that's why people, will sabotage their success. It's almost like, well, but if I get wealthy, does that mean I did something wrong? Did I do it in the backs of others? Was I dishonest? Which is malarkey. But
Yeah.
that's the message we get, right, from the world around us. And it's very easy to fall into that anti-prosperity trap. So what we need to understand is that giving and receiving, they're not opposite side. They're opposite concepts. They're simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work in tandem. But here's what we all know: it begins with the
Yeah.
giving of value, right?
Yeah.
Begins with the giving, and then you allow the receive, right? Hey, this is universal law. Again, these are principles. We plant before we harvest, right?
Yeah.
We sow before we reap. We give before we receive.
Yeah.
When we do that, and then we allow ourselves to receive, right?
Yeah.
Well, now you've built something great for everyone because a rising tide truly does raise all boats. And now
Yeah.
you have much more to give and much more to receive and much more to give. And it's an ever expanding world, an ever expanding economy, and
Yeah.
an ever expanding way of living life.
Yeah. Oh, those are some great points, Bob. They're really, really well talked about as well, and the way you brought the message across. 'Cause
Thank
I've
you.
read quite a lot about giving and like people that say, and there was a lot of people that say people that give to charity quite regularly. I'm not sure if it was maybe it was Tony Robbins or maybe it was Mark Cuban or someone along those lines, and they were saying they've never come across someone who's been poor financially who always gives away, who always gives to charity. They're always a very successful person, always because they have it in their heart that they come from a place, as you're saying, to giving, to making sure not having that self-conscious view, which I
Mhm.
find really important, as what you're alluding to as well, Bob.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of people say, "Oh, well, they can give a lot to charity. They've got a lot of money," but they were giving to charity before they had money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that we know that we see that all the time. It's a con.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's very important what you're saying about consistency. We have a rule, or I try and teach myself this rule, Bob, that just to try and improve 1% every day, when you compound that over time, you've got 365% turnaround, which is insane.
Sure,
And sometimes you get
sure.
better. And I think that's a great rule of it. So going to your third one, I want to just pick, and I'm really grateful for your time, Bob. And I just want to pick on the influence part. I think this is really important for people in business and people and when I've read through the book as well, looking at how it can help people in leadership roles or help people in those sales roles. Because a big question at the moment is how can salespeople come into the tech world if they don't fully understand it or don't fully understand technology? But there's small things people can do. And you mentioned in your book, remembering people's names. So remembering people, how it is important and how that can help with influence. Maybe if I can ask, Bob, you did a great overview, maybe just delve slightly more into what can people do in any role, not just sales role? If they are in a sales role, there's a lot of people in the sales area within this field and lots of other fields. What can they do to overcome the area of overcoming the communication situation, and how can they use influence to help them, whether through tactics like remembering people's names or helping them? What would you say to that, Bob?
Well, in terms of remembering people's names, there's a really great system that you can use. Again, what's a system? It's the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. So,
Yeah.
what I would say is to purchase a book called it's called The Memory Book.
Okay.
It was by Harry Lorayne, Lorayne, and Jerry Lucas, and you can get it, for less than $10 or less than 10 pounds, or whatever the currency. It's pretty inexpensive.
Yeah.
And I would learn the system that they have for remembering people's names. I have a online program on doing that, but it's an audio program. It's a little bit more expensive, and really you could just do it with their book, with their chapter.
Yeah.
So but yeah, if I tried to teach how to do that
Yeah.
in just 2 minutes, it would just be enough for people to say, "That's ridiculous. That's silly." So
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's a system that needs to be learned, but it can be learned. And
Yeah.
I would suggest it if, remembering names or forgetting names was a horrible, horrible weakness with me. And so I took a course, and I, got there. Back then it was cassette tapes with a whole big workbook, and I studied it and studied it and studied it and learned how to do it, and
Yeah.
took a weakness and turned it into a strength. So, you don't have to become an expert at it, but it certainly helps when it helps your confidence when you can walk into a room full of people and be
Yeah.
able to meet people and be confident that you're probably going to remember their names.
Yeah, so I think it was in Dale Carnegie's book in How to Win and Influence People. The sweetest sound is the person's own name or
That
something.
was that was from Dale Carnegie. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
from that book.
yeah, and it's simple little strategies like that I find exciting, that you can influence people and get people on your side or get people invested
Sure.
not been before. And I think it's the small things that lead to the big things. And I love how you highlighted it in the book as well, alongside John as well, who I know you were saying was leading it. Would you have any advice? So we have quite a few people in our community, our audience, and this would be a way to finish off, Bob, because I really appreciate you spending this time. And also to anyone watching, to check out the websites where you can go get the courses. and recommend it to go learn with Bob and to learn from his strategies that he talks around in the books. And a number of people have said how good the book is already. But is there anything you would recommend to people that are looking to write their own book? Sometimes we get recommendations of people that are looking at like making it quite technical. Other people are looking at like the ways of how to do business. Other people look at it from areas. Is there anything you've learned from this series and your other books that you would give as a giveaway, as a recommendation, maybe 1 or 2 points to what they should consider?
In terms of a book that they would write?
Yeah, in terms of,
I mean,
people say I want to publish my own book, and I'm thinking, wow, I've got the best person coming. So,
well, I mean, I think the first part is you have to ask yourself the question, why is it that I want to write a book and publish a book? Okay,
Yeah.
what are you looking to attain from that? Writing a book happens to be a fantastic positioning tool, right? It positions you as an authority in your field. So that's a great reason to write one. And they don't have to sell a lot. You're probably not going to make a lot of money on the book itself if it's not a mainstream book, but it could absolutely position you, and you can earn a huge income from the back end of what happens as a result of writing that book. Then, you've got to decide whether you want to go through a traditional publishing house, whether you want to self-publish, independently publish, do a hybrid. And there's like anything else, there's a system to doing that. And the neat thing is you can go to your favorite search engine and put in, how do I write a book, or how do I publish a book, or what's the first step in publishing a book? And there's all sorts of information, but it always starts with, why do you want to write a book?
Yeah. The key thing, and perfect message in this one. Your why was to teach people the principles of giving, right? To help people.
Yeah, I mean, I think John and I both felt it was a message where the time was right, and it was something we both felt that we wanted to, as part of our, individual, I guess, beliefs of what we could contribute to the world.
Yeah,
that's what we wanted. That we both felt that message was very congruent.
Yeah, I love that. That's really cool. And I really appreciate your time, Bob. So it's been a lot of fun in this short time together to look at what we're doing. And thank you again for coming on, because I know a lot of people wanted you to come on to see how they're dealing with struggles, and and I know there's a lot to delve into. I mean, we could sit on here for 2-3 hours, but I think most people will get a lot of the value by going and getting your book and reading the series, and and John's book as well as co-authors, to see how it can really help, because it did change my mind. And when I'm running a business, it changed my mind completely from, how do I stop just wanting to take? I can't expect to take anything if I've got no value to give, which is the point you touched on straight away, which I think is brilliant, Bob.
I so appreciate it, Tom. And I invite people to check out the Go Giver community and involve themselves with a whole bunch of other Go Givers who are looking to provide immense value to others while also being open to receiving in abundance.
Yeah, I love it. And I really appreciate everyone for joining today on the session. As always, if you want us to bring on any guests, such as the amazing Bob Burg, let us know in the comments, let us know on the series, and we'll try our best to bring you these best minds to teach you the best practices, in this case, the best laws of success to help you with your business and what you're doing. So thank you to everyone wherever you are in the world. And Bob, again, really appreciate you joining, sir.
Thank you, sir.